Welcome to Aiken Business Matters. I'm John McMichael, your host, and I am so pleased today to have two very distinguished guests with us today. Eric Budd, he is the Deputy Executive Director with the Municipal Association of South Carolina, and Randy Wilson, President of Community Design Solutions. They are here in Aiken as part of the Main Street South Carolina group that is here to do a baseline assessment for the city of Aiken. Welcome, gentlemen. We are so happy to have you in town with us.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Eric, Randy, tell us a little bit about yourself, and before we really get into that, tell us a little bit about what Main Street is and how it came about.
Okay. John, Main Street, South Carolina is the state affiliate for the National Main Street Program. And the National Main Street Program is a program designed to help communities succeed in downtown revitalization. And the program focuses on 4 specific points: promotion, organization, design, and economic development. So we're here this week to evaluate where Aiken stands in each of those 4 areas.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to what Eric said, John, is I tend to liken the Main Street approach to a 4-legged stool. You know, as long as all 4 legs are present, you know, it's a really stable stool, but you start removing one or more and it becomes really unbalanced. And so the Main Street approach to downtown revitalization is a very balanced approach. It's a very holistic approach, if you will. You know, Eric just outlined it, but you know, design. The place has to look good and function well. Organization, you got to figure out ways that the public sector can have appropriate input and the private sector can have appropriate responses. You can't rely on either one of those alone to do it. Promotion, you know, how do we just raise awareness of and make people proud of this place they call home, and through events and special festivals and things like that. And then economic restructuring, what we like to say is we aren't trying to compete with the big boxes, but rather complement that with unique offerings in the downtown that typically, but not always, are locally owned. And so I think you can see how all of those work together, but back to the 4-legged stool analogy, if you remove any of them, it's going to be a short-sighted effort. And I think oftentimes when we've seen towns that have sort of degraded over time, it's because they haven't paid attention to all of those things at the same time. Rather, they've emphasized a few to the detriment of the other.
Yeah. Eric, tell us what your background is, because I know, but I want the people to know what your background is.
John, the Municipal Association of South Carolina is the professional association for the 270 cities and towns in South Carolina. And my role as Deputy Executive Director is to operate the education and training programs for the association. So we provide education, training, and technical assistance for the elected officials in the state, as well as key staff positions. And one of those programs is Main Street, South Carolina.
How long have you at Municipal Association been involved with Main Street?
I've been at the association 5.5 years, and prior to that I was city manager in 3 communities in South Carolina for about 21 years.
Wow. So you have a real unique perspective on cities and really what makes a city special.
I think so, and you know, have enjoyed participating as part of the team here in the Aiken effort.
Good.
And I think your city manager experience is probably what gave you the gray hair.
That's correct.
Well, you're really only 35, so
That's right.
Randy, how about you? You have a very unique background as well.
Well, sure. Thanks, John. I jokingly and often tell people I'm a recovering architect. That doesn't imply I didn't enjoy my career in private architectural practice. I actually enjoyed it very much. But I don't know, roughly 15 years ago, I decided to look at a professional change and got into the Main Street program, which in many ways, while it doesn't diminish the role of architecture and especially not of preservation, in some other ways it's a bit more planning oriented. And so actually for quite a while I was the full-time architect for Main Street, South Carolina, wow, housed at the Municipal Association of South Carolina. A few years later I decided to go out on my own and launched a practice which was devoted to many of the same principles that Main Street espouses, and have been very privileged to remain on as the consulting architect for Main Street, South Carolina.
This is not your first time in Aiken, is it?
No, it's not. I've actually had the privilege of working here for 15 or more years. Actually, obviously serving this community through my role as the Main Street architect at one time, also having the privilege of writing your downtown design guidelines. And all of those things gave me exposure to this really wonderful place. And I've made it no secret over the years, Aiken is definitely one of my favorite cities in all of South Carolina. And there are a lot of reasons. I mean, in the reasons and the reasons you live here, just the beauty of the place, the physical beauty of the place, whether it's in the alleys of trees, the parkways, the historic architecture, this really wonderful sort of presence of this equestrian community. It's just a remarkable place. And as I told somebody the other day, even though it's this really wonderful, quote unquote, quaint southern city, there's very much a cosmopolitan nature to Aiken. It's just a remarkable and unique place that I don't know exists anywhere. That's why it's one of my favorites.
Well, I appreciate that. I know the people in Aiken really feel that way.
Yeah, well,
especially.
They should. Yeah.
And to have somebody like the two of you come into town and point that out, it's a special thing. It really is.
So. Okay.
You've been in other parts of the country representing the Main Street
Sure.
program. Tell us about some of the cities that you've been in.
Oh wow, that's
I know you've been to a lot.
Yeah, I've had the privilege. I really stopped counting after 200, but I had the privilege of working in several hundred Main Street communities all across America, and as far up north as Delaware and Vermont, out west as far as LA, the port of LA, any further west we'd have been wet. Wyoming, coming back a little closer, of course, a lot in North Carolina, Virginia, a ton in Mississippi, because for a while I actually served as Mississippi's Main Street architect as well. And then virtually every city in South Carolina. And I think my wife and kids, they always think it's kind of unique because when you go into a place and study it from a Main Street perspective, you always find out the real unique stories behind the place, whether it's about the historic things that occurred there, historic places that reside there, historic people who interacted with the place. And so it's a rare South Carolina town where I don't know some cool little story or a hole-in-the-wall restaurant to dine in. And so that's what makes this role truly enjoyable.
Yeah. One of our local historians, Owen Clary, has put together a fairly extensive little running narrative of all the things that have happened in Aiken for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And remind me, I'm going to give you a copy of that, because it has some really neat little stories in there that from the Hope Diamond, as we've talked about. So and we went on, people would probably be interested to know that you've not only just come and been here, but you've taken walking tours and riding tours and are familiar with Aiken anyway. Mm-hmm. And certainly in your role with the Municipal Association, you're very familiar with Aiken as well. Yes. And so many of the citizens here.
But I was going to say, you took us on a phenomenal tour the other day, John, and I know Eric would agree.
Yes, it was great.
And so even though I'd been acquainted with Aiken, I actually saw some things I'd never seen before. And learned some new things I'd never known before. Like Hitchcock Woods was probably the most significant new thing that I learned about Aiken. That I just had no idea you had that massive of a preserve, and that's just a remarkable feature.
Well, don't feel bad. Growing up in Aiken, it was something that we took for granted.
There you go.
And as a young Boy Scout and things like that, we'd go in the woods doing hiking and camping. Not camping.
Don't
but
tell
hiking.
them everything you did in there.
No, I better not. You're right. Thank you. I'll cut that short. But and you just forget about over the years just what a unique and wonderful
place it is.
Possibilities that exist for the use of Hitchcock.
Sure.
Eric, you see a lot of cities. You've been to, you probably have so much information about the state of South Carolina and how Aiken fits into it. But what kind of cities are equipped for Main Street? Is there a size differential that plays a part in that?
John, I think the approach works in virtually all of our cities. Okay. It takes commitment from both the private sector and the public sector to make the program work. And the way our program is structured now, municipalities can apply to join the program. And the first three years, they participate in what we call boot camp, which is a 3-year hands-on, very highly technical portion of their participation in the program. After the initial 3 years, they graduate into what we call a full member status, and there's a lower level of technical assistance, but they continue to be a Main Street, South Carolina member. So currently we have 8 cities in the boot camp program, and then we this year have added Aiken and Moncks Corner, which brings us to 10, and then we have 8 cities that are in the full tier membership. So currently we're serving 18 cities.
Well, I think our viewers would like to know that we were invited up last week and met with both of you and had an initial meeting of all the groups that are all the cities that are involved in it. And I was, we came back from that real energized in the fact that it's nice to be in a room where you have that many cities with a common purpose. We found out that we're all different, but we're all the same.
That's right.
And the enthusiasm and the great ideas that are cross-pollinated, I guess, it was kind of unique. I walked back and said, you know, people that are willing to share information and create what we all refer to this day and time as networking. It's I think that's a vital part of it. Would you say that's true?
I think it is, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I harken back to last week, and you know, yes, there were some dedicated times for training, which were helpful. But I'm with you, John. Just the time that was spent in what we call the round table and the managers sharing what they're doing in each of their respective cities and towns, and just learning from those is invaluable. And I think the other thing that's invaluable about, you know, Aiken's membership in Main Street, South Carolina, is the fact that in turn, Main Street, South Carolina, of course, is a part of the national network, which taps into thousands of cities and towns, and it's rare that there's not an issue that you will have to face or address that hasn't been addressed in another community. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We can sort of tap into that sort of body of knowledge. Speaking purely and only from an architectural perspective, you know, if Aiken were to call me tomorrow with a preservation-related question that I couldn't answer, in a matter of minutes I could fire off an email to the other respective Main Street architects in America, and within hours I would have a body of information to share with you guys for that particular issue. And so, you know, your membership, you know, pays dividends well beyond just what you receive on the local level.
It was amazing to me. I brought just made a comment in one of our sessions, and during a break, one of the other cities, somebody from one of the other cities came up and said, "You made a comment. We went through the same thing.
There you go.
Can I share with you?" And I said, "Please, please.
Yeah.
You know, let me take notes while you're telling me." And I said, I walked away with that it's, you know, it's wonderful that people are willing to say, you know, they didn't have to spend that time. It was a break time. It was a time for them to relax, but they felt, you know, there's a camaraderie, I guess, that develops in this program. And I think that was one thing that really stood out to me, is that there's a synergy in connection, and you almost feel like it's a teamwork.
It is. I've always found Main Street people to be some of the most generous people on the planet. And I like the fact that we're all about a common mission, you know. We care. I mean, downtown Aiken succeeding helps downtown Lawrence succeed,
Right.
which helps downtown Columbia succeed. And so we all view it as we're on the same team. And so I'm glad you had that experience.
Well, it was, and Eric came in there and shared with us and spent some time with us. And you know, anytime you're the dreamer, Eric's the practical dollars and cents, and I appreciated that we have so many different pieces of it. And you mentioned earlier, Eric, that the 4 building blocks of Main Street, and certainly the economics of it are so important. Does it take a lot of effort on the part of these cities to be successful in the Main Street? What does it really take to be successful? I know that's a huge question, isn't it?
Well, I'd say
Thanks, John, for giving us an easy one.
I'd say first and foremost is the commitment to want to address the problem.
Right.
Second, I would say building a really strong public-private partnership, because the private sector and the public sector can't do it by themselves. It's got to be a group effort. and a great deal of citizen engagement. And as you know, that's what we've done on Tuesday morning, and then Tuesday evening, and then on Wednesday morning. And y'all's turnout was absolutely phenomenal. I think we probably had, what, Randy, 200 people?
Absolutely.
Yeah, at least.
So great engagement by the citizens, high level of participation, and a real level of excitement and enthusiasm.
Do you get that everywhere?
No. If I can be so bold, I get nervous saying these kinds of things, but when I called my wife last night to debrief about the day, I actually said that was probably one of the best public input sessions I'd ever been a part of. And I've been a part of a lot of them. And to Eric's point, the enthusiasm and the degree of citizen engagement was just palpable last night. You can tell these people are passionate about this place. And those are the kinds of people we want to work with.
Right. My wife asked me when I got home last night, same thing.
Yeah.
And I said, I was just really blown away. Not only did the people make comments there, but they were well thought out, well intentioned,
Right.
with a lot of that they thought long and hard about their answers.
I mean, it was basically 3 hours of engagement with 200 people, and there were some issues and challenges raised, but no one was negative, which is, I don't think I've ever participated in that long of a meeting with that many people, that there was not some negative tone.
Yeah.
It didn't exist.
Yeah, anything that was even close was really almost in the form of constructive criticism. Right. The only one, strong, not so much a caution, but encouragement, back to the leadership here at Aiken. And by leadership, I mean not just elected leadership, I also mean just community champions.
Right.
Is it behooves us to now respond appropriately. If people have been generous enough to give up their time to come to speak their mind about their aspirations for the future of this place, it's incumbent upon us to respond as quickly and as thoughtfully as possible. Yeah. And of course, that probably entails we can't do everything that was desired and described last night and this morning, but I think we can be thoughtful enough to figure out what are some things that we can do quickly to see, so people can see, wow, they really did listen, and they've implemented that. And I think that builds confidence. I think it also builds trust for when you have to go back and try to do the things that are going to take longer or cost more or be more difficult to enact. Yeah. But those two input sessions were phenomenal.
Yeah, I was just blown away last night. I said, well, maybe it's just because it's the last thing of the day that they're going to do before they go home for most of them, but the people stayed around after it was over with and still talked among themselves and with you, both of you, or the whole team. And same thing happened this morning.
Right.
One gentleman left, went down the hall. I saw him. I knew who he was. He went down the hall, came back and said, who was taking the notes? Because I thought of something I wanted to leave. Yeah. And I said, yes, that's it.
Yeah, and just real quick, in case a listener or a watcher couldn't attend and they want to have a voice into the process, if you don't mind being the repository for anybody who wants to, get feedback to Eric or myself or our other two team members, which are Beppe LeGrand, who is the director of Main Street, South Carolina, or Monica Miller, who is with Main Street, West Virginia. All you have to do is, if you can receive those for us and send them to us, we will absolutely take them into consideration.
We would certainly relish them doing that and be tickled to death to pass them on, because from working with you in the last couple of days, it's very obvious that you're very passionate about what you're doing. You love what you're doing, and I like to be a part of things that are positive, that that there's going to be movement and that we're going to see some good results from. One other thing that I wanted to really get a handle, we talked a little bit about our public input sessions, but can y'all just kind of give the people that weren't able to come or be a part of some of the day, tell them a little bit about, kind of give them a thumbnail sketch of what the baseline process is all about and what is included in it.
Okay. As we say, we will spend 2 10 or 12-hour days in Aiken. And in addition to the input sessions, we've had a number of small group discussions. We've had one-on-one meetings with key community leaders, elected officials, and staff. And what we will do is go back and evaluate everything that we've heard. And as Randy mentioned, there's 2 other members of the team. We each have one area of responsibility that we're responsible for pulling the report together to address. So in my case, it's the economic development portion, and in Randy's case, it's the design portion. So we will prepare our notes, make recommendations to the city as to how they can move forward as they enter the boot camp program.
Great. That's a good thumbnail sketch of what went on. A lot of preparation went into this ahead of time, didn't it, Randy?
Absolutely, and thankfully we had a little bit of institutional knowledge about Aiken from prior experiences, but what's really interesting, in a way, we try to forget all that and come in and do the baseline assessment in sort of an objective way, because really, in a way, part of the snapshot is giving you the benefit of an outsider's view of what's going on. You know, sometimes it's really hard when you live in this place 24/7, 365. You know, change occurs so incrementally, you may not even notice it. Whereas we come in, it's like, wow, we see this change or this new development or this opportunity. And so we had all those input sessions and roundtables and one-on-ones. But part of the preparation, while we did background research, is then we said, all right, now that we know all that, let's just start over with a blank slate and, you know, build it from the ground up. And we kind of refer to it as a baseline assessment. That baseline it sets sort of, if you will, the before picture. And when we come back a year from now, 5 years from now, then we'll see the after snapshot. And so it just kind of sets the foundation of where you are so we can sort of measure your implementation success thereafter.
Well, that's great. You just answered the question I was going to ask you next, and that is, how much involvement is there going forward?
Well, that's the beauty of the Main Street program, you know, whether it's in South Carolina or nationwide. You know, we're always there for you. And, you know, whether it's a phone call, an email, a text, a site visit, you know, a technical study, we don't leave your side at all. And I like how Eric described it, especially in those first 3 years, the boot camp. There's an even greater intensity to both the frequency of those meetings and the amount of services that are provided. But even after that, we're still in the picture to the degree that you need us.
Right. One thing that I really I think it would be a fun thing to talk about, and I say fun because it's something that I'm passionate about, and I know y'all are too, but I'd love to have your thoughts on what are some of the really key, neat things about Aiken that kind of resonate with you. Eric?
Well, I think the first thing is that I think we're excited to have Aiken as a member because Aiken already has a really strong downtown. Great mix of retail and restaurants. Your buildings are in excellent conditions. You have very low vacancy rate. So Aiken is going to give us an opportunity to not have to start from the bottom and rebuild.
Right. Well said.
So we're going to be able, I think, in Aiken to assist the city and the community in taking you to the next level. And that's exciting because that's a little bit different than a lot of the communities that we work in. Yeah. The involvement of the citizens has just been phenomenal. Something fairly unique, at least in the communities I've worked in. And then just the beauty of your community. You know, I've been to Aiken many times, but as Randy said, yesterday's tour gave me a chance to see parts that I've not seen. And going through that input session and hearing the audience describe the community has been very helpful for me. Yeah. And the residents truly love Aiken.
Yeah. Thank you. You really did capture what I was hoping you'd say, because I heard you say much the same thing in some of the sessions yesterday. Randy, how about you? I know you were out with your camera. Every time I turned around, I didn't see your face for a while. All I saw was a camera.
Well, I wish I'd have answered first because Eric said everything I would have said. That was a really good and thoughtful answer, and I agree with everything. First, I'll put on my planner hat. You know, from an architect planner perspective, you know, just the unique grid layout of Aiken, particularly with, you know, the parkways and the one-way pairs. Now, frankly, for the visitor, sometimes I'm sure it can be a little disorienting, knowing when you can go and when you have to stop when you make a left or right turn. But that aside, that is such a distinguishing mark of downtown Aiken. I don't know where else it exists. So that, from a physical planning feature, is one of the most identifiable. Your natural environment, whether it's your downtown and again these alley of trees, or the natural environment that exists in Hitchcock Woods or out the equestrian areas of town. The historic architecture is just second to none, whether we're referring to the downtown commercial buildings or particularly the just stunningly gorgeous residential ones, just phenomenal architectural assets. But I think the thing that sort of moves us from planning to kind of culture, the presence of the arts here, the presence of various forms of culture, whether it's public art installations, the performing arts and your performing arts center downtown, cultural resources such as the library, the African American Museum, the Railroad Museum. I mean, just those kinds of assets, a community might have one. It's rare that you have a community that has so many. Matter of fact, I was thinking of Aiken today, and how would you describe Aiken? Is Aiken a horse community? Yeah. But is Aiken a historic town? Yeah. Is Aiken a natural environment? Yes. And so you should be proud, because I think you would be the envy of a lot of places because of the amount of assets you have. But I would absolutely concur with Eric. The single best and biggest asset you have is your people.
Yeah.
And
our university.
Yeah, and I promised I was going to get there, but thank you for reminding me. And when I say the people, I don't mean that in that sort of superficial, schmarmy way that was like, oh, your people are your best customer. No, think about people in a much deeper and richer way in Aiken. I mean, this place has literally been the melting pot for centuries. You had this influx in the industrial age. You had another influx during the Cold War. And so you've got this amazing amalgamation of people from every walk of life, every part of America, and somehow y'all figured out a way to make it coexist and work.
Wow.
And not lose, in my estimation, your Southern charm. And that's to be really commended. And I agree with you. I think your institutions of higher education, whether it's Aiken Tech or USC Aiken, also contribute to that because people from all walks of life attend those universities. And so, to say it simply, you're cooking with a lot of gas here. I mean, it's a fantastic place.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. We really appreciate all the hard work that you have put into the preparation and to the orchestration of this this whole time together here in Aiken. And it's we've been looking forward to it for a while. We're so glad. Thank you for being a part of it.
Sure.
And thank you for being a part of our program. And we look forward to being with you again next week on Aiken Business Matters. Thank you again.
Thank you.